They mocked her, laughed in her face, and told her a black woman could never be a real mechanic. But when a wealthy businessman rolled in with a car worth more than most people's houses, one that even top experts had failed to fix, he made a bold promise. "I'll pay you $100,000 if you can make this engine roar." Everyone thought she'd fail. The men bet against her, waiting to watch her give up. But what happened next didn't just silence the room. It shook the entire town. This is the unbelievable story of Alicia Brown, the mechanic they doubted, the challenge they mocked, and the engine that changed everything. Asterisk you? A mechanic? Don't make me laugh. The insult cut through the garage like a knife. It wasn't the first time Alicia Brown had heard those words, but it still stung. She stood there in her grease-stained overalls, her thick curls tied, back in a bandana, holding a wrench in her hand. Around her, the men at the shop chuckled, shaking their heads, as if the very idea of a black woman working on engines was the funniest joke of the year. But Alicia didn't respond with anger. She had learned long ago that shouting back wouldn't earn her respect her work would. From the time she was a child, Alicia had loved the smell of oil, the clinking sound of tools, and the way her father's eyes lit up whenever an old, broken-down car came roaring back to life. Her father, Samuel Brown, wasn't just a mechanic. He was a teacher. He would say, "An engine is like a puzzle. If you've got patience, you can solve it. Doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, black, white, engines don't discriminate. People do." Those words stayed with Alicia. Even after her father passed away when she was only 19, she carried his lessons in her heart. And yet the world around her wasn't as accepting. Customers would ask, "Can I speak to the real mechanic?" Or, "Is there a man here who knows what he's doing?" Every time, Alicia swallowed her pride and kept working, letting her results do the talking. This particular day, the laughter grew louder as the door of the garage opened. In walked a tall man in a tailored suit, polished shoes that gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and a gold watch that probably cost more than every car parked outside combined. His name was Mr. Carlyle, a wealthy businessman known for his arrogance as much as his money. He looked around, scanning the mechanics, but his gaze stopped on Alicia. His eyebrows rose as if he couldn't believe his eyes. "So, you're the one everyone keeps whispering about," he said slowly, his voice dripping with skepticism. "The mechanic." He practically spit out the word. "Yes," Alicia replied, standing her ground. "What can I help you with?" Mr. Carlyle smirked. "I've got a car outside, a real beauty. Problem is, no one has managed to fix it. Not in 6 months. I've taken it to the best shops in 3 states. They all failed." He paused, watching her reaction, waiting for her to back down. Instead, Alicia's expression didn't change. "So bring it in," she said calmly. That response made a few of the men in the shop burst out laughing. She doesn't know what she's getting into. She'll be crying before lunch. Imagine her fixing a car worth more than this whole shop. But Mr. Carlyle raised a hand, silencing them. Then he leaned in closer to Alicia. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "You fix it, I'll pay you $100,000, cash. But if you fail, well, let's just say your little reputation here will be finished." The challenge hung in the air like a heavy weight. The mechanics whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads, others betting she wouldn't last an hour. But Alicia didn't flinch. She didn't let the mockery show on her face. She looked Carlyle straight in the eye and replied in the same steady tone her father had once used whenever someone doubted him. "Bring it in." The first turn of the wrench echoed through the garage like a challenge. Alicia bent over the engine, her gloves already stained with grease, her forehead glistening under the harsh fluorescent lights. She worked in silence, But every move spoke volumes. For the men watching, silence was uncomfortable. They filled it with noise, mocking comments, fake coughs, and exaggerated bets. She'll break something in 5 minutes. Look at her pretending like she knows what she's doing. Better call a tow truck now. But Alicia tuned them out. She had long ago mastered the art of ignoring background noise. Instead, she focused on the language of the engine. The faint smell of burning oil, the rough texture of an overused belt, the way one bolt sat tighter than the others. Each detail told a story, and she was piecing it together. After an hour, sweat was dripping down her back, soaking through her overalls. The car wasn't giving in easily. Each problem she solved revealed another one buried underneath. A melted connector here, a warped gasket there. Even the software had been tampered with, leaving digital scars that confused the diagnostic systems. At one point, she adjusted a valve, only for the engine to let out a loud metallic clank. The sound made the men roar with laughter. She killed. It, one of them shouted, "Better luck next time, sweetheart." Another jeered. Mr. Carlyle raised an eyebrow, his smirk returning. "Looks like you're in over your head after all." But Alicia didn't flinch. She simply muttered, "Not yet," and went back to work. Hours passed. 2, then 3. Her knuckles were raw from scraping against sharp edges. Her hands ached, but her grip on the tools never faltered. She remembered her father's voice. The engine always talks back if you listen long enough. Don't rush it, respect it. And so she listened. She replaced frayed wires one by one. She realigned the crankshaft with painstaking precision. She recalibrated the sensors, correcting what every other mechanic had overlooked. Slowly, the engine began to look less like a mess of problems and more like a machine with hope. The laughter in the room began to fade into uneasy silence. Some of the men stopped cracking jokes and leaned closer, realizing this wasn't guesswork. This was skill. Finally, after nearly 4 hours, Alicia tightened the last bolt and stepped back. Her body was tired, but her eyes shone with determination. The garage was so quiet now that you could hear the ticking of the wall clock. She wiped. Her hands slid into the driver's seat and inserted the key. For a moment, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. She turned the key. At first, the engine coughed and sputtered, as if resisting her efforts. The men snickered again, ready to pounce. But then, roar! The engine erupted to life, smoother and stronger than it had ever sounded before. The roar filled the garage, vibrating through the floor, drowning out every voice of doubt. Men froze, their jaws dropping. The laughter died instantly. What they had all declared impossible. Alicia had just done. And for the first time all day, the room was truly silent. For a long, charged moment, no one spoke. The roar of the engine reverberated off the garage walls like a lion announcing its dominance. Alicia sat behind the wheel, calm and steady, while the men who had mocked her just minutes earlier stood, frozen, their mouths hanging open. The car wasn't just running, it was purring, smooth and powerful, like it had been waiting months for her touch. Every second it idled was proof that Alicia had accomplished what dozens of so-called top mechanics could not. One of the younger mechanics, who had laughed the loudest earlier, muttered under his breath, "That's impossible." Another shook his head, whispering, "She actually did it." Even Mr. Carlyle, the ever-confident businessman, seemed stunned. His smug smirk had vanished. For once, the man who was used to control and superiority looked uncertain. Slowly, he stepped closer to the car, listening to the perfect hum of the engine. He ran his hand along the hood, as if touching it would confirm this wasn't a dream. Then, without another word, he turned to Alicia. She had climbed out of the driver's seat and was standing tall, her face glistening with sweat, her hands streaked with grease. Mr. Carlyle reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it on the hood of the car, right in front of her. $100,000, he said firmly. His voice had changed, no longer dripping with sarcasm, but filled with something Alicia hadn't expected. Respect. You earned every cent. Gasps rippled through the room. Some of the men stepped closer, their eyes wide at the sight of so much money. For them, the cash was shocking. But for Alicia, the true reward wasn't the money, it was the acknowledgement. The same mechanics who had mocked her earlier now couldn't meet her eyes. Their laughter had turned into silence, their arrogance into shame. One of them scratched the back of his neck awkwardly and mumbled, Guess you really are the best mechanic here. Alicia didn't rub it in. She didn't need to. She simply nodded, wiped her hands on her rag, and said quietly, Engines don't care who fixes them. Only people do. Her words hung in the air. Heavier than the roar of the engine. Mr. Carlyle's gaze lingered on her. Finally, he gave a small, genuine smile. I misjudged you. You've got more skill and grit than anyone I've met in a long time. From this day on, whenever someone asks me where to take their car, I'll be sending them to you. The mechanics shifted uncomfortably, realizing the power of what had just happened. In one afternoon, the balance of respect in that garage had shifted forever. Alicia was no longer the one they laughed at. He was the one they would all have to look up to. And though Alicia tucked the envelope under her arm, she didn't look at it again. For her, the $100,000 was a bonus. The real prize was standing in the middle of that shop, hearing nothing but the steady purr of the engine she had revived, and knowing that everyone in the room finally saw her for who she truly was, a master of her craft. Word of Alicia's victory didn't stay inside that garage for long. By the next morning, it was everywhere. In the small town where news usually spread slowly, this story moved like wildfire. People whispered in coffee shops, gas stations, and barber shops. Did you hear about that black woman mechanic who fixed the car no one else could? She made $100,000 in one afternoon. No, it wasn't luck. She's the real deal. Same folks who had once raised their eyebrows when they saw her under a hood now looked at her with new eyes. Within days, customers who had doubted her lined up outside her small shop. Pickup trucks, SUVs, minivans, even motorcycles, they all came rolling in. And this time, no one asked, Is there a man I can talk to? They asked for Alicia by name, but Alicia didn't let the attention change her. She greeted each customer the same way she always had, kindly, professionally, with quiet confidence. When people tried to bring up the $100,000, she'd shrug and say, That was just a job. Every engine deserves the same respect. Still, the ripple effects went far beyond her garage. High school girls who had once walked past the shop without a second thought now peeked inside, watching Alicia at work. Some of them even asked if she could teach them. And she did. She set up Saturday workshops, showing them how to change oil, rotate tires, and listen for the subtle signs of engine trouble. The laughter that once filled the shop at her expense was now replaced with the sound of curiosity, learning, and pride. Mr. Carlyle, true to his word, became her most powerful advocate. He told his wealthy friends about her skills, and soon she was servicing cars worth millions, vehicles most mechanics never even got to touch. But more importantly, he admitted publicly that he had been wrong. At a town event weeks later, he sighed, I thought I was testing her. Turns out she was testing all of us, and we failed until she proved us wrong. That honesty sparked something in people. Conversations began to change. Folks who had once dismissed the idea of a woman, especially a black woman, working in a field like mechanics started rethinking their biases. Alicia hadn't just fixed an engine. She had cracked open people's assumptions. And she did it without anger, without shouting, without needing to humiliate anyone. She let her work speak. The real victory wasn't the roar of the engine. It was the roar of respect, echoing long after that day. Alicia became more than just a mechanic. She became a symbol of perseverance, resilience, and breaking barriers. Her father's words lived on through her. Engines don't care who fixes them. Only people do. And now, people were finally learning to see past their prejudices. So the lesson was clear. When the world mocks you, doubts you, and tells you it's impossible, remember Alicia. Remember that every laugh, every insult, every doubt can be silenced, not with words, but with undeniable proof of your ability. Because sometimes the loudest response isn't what you say, it's what you do. Asterisk. And so, Alicia didn't just fix an engine, she fixed the way people saw her. What began with laughter and doubt ended with respect and a roaring victory. She proved that real skill doesn't care about your gender, your color, or where you come from. It only cares about your determination. If this story inspired you, don't let it stop here. Hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs motivation, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. And remember, sometimes the best way to answer doubt is not with words, but with success.